Why was there a need for a regulatory authority such as RERA to be there to regulate the industry?
I'll just take a minute to sort of take you into the history of human settlements.
What all goes to plan a 20-year plan for a city?
Mumbai fundamentally is not going to see what I call a greenfield development. It's going to see brownfield.
Redevelopment.
More or less redevelopment. Very well said. No legislation can decide to regulate everything. The minute you say, I will regulate everything, I will scrutinize everything, I'm going to monitor everything, you're either lying or you're bound to fail.
Forming a new regulatory authority, what might be the challenges that RERA might have faced during its inception?
Most of the people said, as it is, I need so many permissions, why one more? Nothing succeeds unless it's a two-way street. One-way streets never succeed.
When.
It doesn't happen.
Any precautions we have to make sure that projects don't get stalled?
Projects get stalled when money does not come into an account meant for constructing the project.
Why is developer given the freedom to decide the timeline?
We believe that disclosure is important and not dictating terms. As Rabindranath Tagore said, just open your windows and doors and let it come.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Speaking Real Estate podcast, and today with us we have a very special guest who is an IS officer from 1984 batch. He is none other than Mr. Ajoy Mehta, who is currently the chairman of MahaRERA. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this and making this happen. We are really glad and delighted to see that we're having an interview, a podcast with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me over, Rish.
So I would want to start off with your education, where you decided to take a path of being an IS officer in 1984, a time when the prestige of this role was immensely high. So what made you pursue this path at that time?
Well, to start with, Krish, I am fundamentally a civil engineer from IIT BHU. I did my engineering, and in college itself I was picked up by Engineers India Limited for their offshore engineering division. That was just coming up. We just found oil in the Mumbai High, and oil exploration was taking place. India had got into installing rigs. So we were almost the first batch of people who got into this, designing oil drilling rigs. It's a very exciting sort of a job that was going on. And I happened to be there. But while I was working there were some friends who were appearing for the IAS, and that's when I sort of got enamored with this and said, "Ki chalo, let's give it a try. Dekhte kya hota hai." I was told it's a tough exam. Gave it, and I don't know, more than merit, I would say luck, I was there. And joined Mussoorie, the academy, as a young officer of about 24 years. Stars in the eyes, as they say. Started off. And then one great journey. The training itself was great. Then I got posted, I got Maharashtra as a cadre. Of course, it's all new. I belong to Delhi. For me, Maharashtra was completely new. Except for Mumbai, I didn't know anything else. And my first posting was Dhulia. So I had to actually look up the map and say, Dhulia hai kahan? And then you found a little place there, and there would be a train which took you to Jalgaon. And then there was a branch line which took you to Dhulia. So you got off at the station. It was all dust and a very hot summer afternoon. So there was somebody to receive you. Of course, that's where we started. There was a probationer there. And as you go along and you do your district postings, they teach you a lot. When you do your district posting, you really get to know rural India.
Okay.
And you really get to serve rural India. What's happening in agriculture, what's happening in animal husbandry. And Maharashtra is a very progressive state, whether it was agriculture or animal husbandry or anything else, Maharashtra industry. So you got to see things at the ground level and do things at the ground level. People come with different problems, different issues, health issues, so many things. You get to listen to them, sort it out. So the first thing that one learned was that, yes, there are problems. Yes, there is criticism. But let's not get disturbed by that. You need to listen to the problem and find a way. And you must find a way, because where does he go if he doesn't go to you? So you must find a way. You can't just tell him, okay, that's a problem I can do nothing about. So that's the first thing I learned when I did my district posting. So that's where it is, how things happen. Then, of course, I did a posting in Government of India, and I went to GOI, as they say, the Government of India Central Deputation. That was a different learning experience altogether. So I was in, for example, the Agriculture Ministry. So you got to see not only agriculture in India, but you got to see agriculture the world over. You had agreements, MOUs with different countries. You had issues about food security. It was a complete eye-opener how the world looked at things and how different states. Till now, I was looking at Maharashtra only. Then we looked at Northeast and the kind of horticulture that was on there. We looked at Madhya Pradesh. We looked at the South. First time I came to know that a vanilla crop is a very expensive thing. People actually put security guards in Kerala to ensure that the crop is not stolen. So you got to see the whole exposure. You got to, and then fortunately I did various roles which today you may not believe that I was also chairman of the Coconut Development Board.
Okay.
At one point of time. So it gives you a huge experience, a huge exposure till I came to Mumbai. I came back to Mumbai and that time I came into the power sector. And we had a very bad power crisis in those days, 2005. There was load shedding of 12, 14, 15 hours. And that's the time when I was sort of parachuted from Delhi into the power sector. Spent 10 years there. That was a huge challenge to sort of bring up Maharashtra from a power deficit state to a power surplus state. And that was a big challenge that we worked with. From there to the corporation and then the chief secretary, and finally I'm here.
Your major learnings from the power sector?
One was, of course, technically I learned a lot.
Okay.
Of course, I was an engineer, so it was very easy for me to pick up things like that because it's completely technology driven. It's absolutely technology driven. That's one. Secondly, it's also a lot of coordination that I learned. You got money from the banks because you need to do a lot of borrowings in the power sector. You need a lot of inputs which come from different places like mines, water supply from the local bodies. So you learn about coordinating various input materials. And thirdly was that it was a terrible crisis. You can't imagine, when I joined on that day itself, there was a newspaper item which said that is very likely to go for load shedding. It's unimaginable now.
Right.
And it was unimaginable before that.
Okay.
But that's the kind of power crisis we had in those days. And so you learned about, sort of facing it and thinking long term, because a power station or any plan that you make today won't see the light of the day till about 3 to 4 years. So you plan long term and then you slowly put things in place and see that it gets delivered. Luckily, I would say the government was in fact, Maharashtra that way is a very, very well administered state politically also. I got 10 years in the power sector, gave me stability, and also I could sort of put a lot of long-term plans in place and see it reach the end.
You have been promoted to different kind of positions at different points in your career. How was your response to each time being exposed to a new sector, new industry?
Well, the first response is always excitement. Oh, I'm Municipal Commissioner of Mumbai. Then after the first few hours, when the congratulatory messages die down, then it's apprehension. Are Mumbai ka commissioner is a big thing. Kya hoga? Will I be able to perform? Can I meet the people's expectations? There are problems. How do I deal with this and how do I deal with that? The organization is huge. And then the next response is sweat and hard work. That's about it. So it starts with a lot of euphoria. You're great and happy. Then it's apprehension. Finally, you get down to hard work and sweat. That's the only thing that takes you forward. Whether it is a student or you're the CEO of a company or you're a municipal commissioner, it's finally at the end of it, it boils down to one line.
Hard work and sweat. So since you were the Mumbai's commissioner for a good amount of time and you have done various significant works, and one of them was putting in place the development plan of 2034 for Mumbai. Can you explain us what all goes to plan a 20-year plan for a city?
See, the very first thing that we did was in any city planning, fundamentally it's a land use planning. How are you going to allocate your land resource for planning and meeting the needs of citizens? That is what a development plan is all about. So that's the first step. So you have this much of land. How are you going to allocate that resource? Land is a scarce resource. You can't manufacture. You can say, okay, let me manufacture a little more of this. It's there. Now, how are you going to allocate between residential, commercial, parks, gardens, hospitals, schools? So you need to allocate between these things. That's one. And after you've done the allocation, the next thing is you come up with what is called the development control regulations, which actually regulates the construction of the building. So first you plan the city. Well, I'll have my residences here, I'll have the schools there, and I'll have the gardens here. So that's a larger planning. Then how will the school be built? How much can you build, or how the houses will be? The DCR, as they call the actual development. Now, in the planning, the first and foremost thing that you must realize is that Mumbai is a land-starved city. The density is one of the highest in the world, population density.
Okay.
So while it's a land-starved city with a high population density, there are also issues like it has one of the smallest or the least amount of open space per unit of population. So you need to look at challenges. What are the challenges? Where is your deficit? So you have deficit in terms of open spaces, gardens. You have deficit in terms of maybe a city is not about just workplaces. A city is not just about
Public spaces as well.
living. It's about public spaces. It's about what you call exploiting the human potential, theatre, music,
Entertainment areas.
entertainment, areas where children can just simply play or simply just run around. That's about it. Or just put 3 wickets and start playing cricket. That's it. No rule, nothing. I just get a ball, bat, and 3 wickets. There I am. I start. So things like that. So therefore, we started looking at deficit areas. Then we looked at what is the population growth, how many jobs would be created. So if you're going to create these many jobs, you need these many office spaces also. So if you have to create that office space, what is the kind of FSI you need? And then if that is the office space, then you need so many residential spaces. What is the kind of FSI you need? So these are the things that we looked at. The second thing that we looked at was Mumbai fundamentally is not going to see what I call a greenfield development. It's going to see brownfield.
Redevelopment.
More or less redevelopment. Very well said. So it's going to be redevelopment. It's not going to be greenfield, but there's hardly 5% is available now. Rest is going to be redevelopment. Most of these buildings are now 30, 50, 40 years old. They have to go in for redevelopment to meet the population needs, meet the modern needs for safety, meet needs in terms of a better living areas. So how do you now encourage redevelopment without compromising on environmental issues, safety issues, providing spaces for entertainment, people's well-being? So that was the other issue that we looked at.
I think so. One major comeback would be the cluster scheme that came because
Cluster
of
scheme
this.
came in. We looked at, encouraging societies to develop their own buildings themselves.
Right.
Self-development of societies. So all these things got looked at, and I'm very happy that all that found place in the plan. The last issue, which if I can call the development plan 34 a success, which of course history will judge, I can say anything today, has been transparency.
Okay.
Day one, I said the whole plan, as we draft it, as we write every word, let people read it.
Okay.
There can be nothing secret, there can be nothing confidential in a plan. Finally, who are you making this plan for?
The
For
city.
the citizens, for the residents of Mumbai. You can't keep it secret between some 4 planners and 6 administrators, only they know it or nobody else knows it. No. So day one, we said, as we write the word, please read it. And tell me, you want to amend this, you want to correct this, you want to change this? That you can't imagine the kind of feedback we got. An intelligent feedback, an adaptable feedback. And we went on incorporating that feedback, amending as we went along. Took a little more time, but what we came out with was something which was a people's plan. It was not a planner's plan. Many times you make a plan where the planner is very happy. Oh, I've met every concept in the textbook. Yeah, it's good to say that textbook says this and therefore I did it. But then the people must accept it finally. That's something that I found happened in this plan.
We might not be aware what is going on the road or what the developer is facing or the customer is facing. Knowing their thoughts and opinions and getting that feedback helps us in preparing better. Goes to every aspect of life as well.
Absolutely.
So coming to the RERA and its formation, can you narrate the story of how RERA came into formation and why was there a need for a regulatory authority such as RERA to be there to regulate the industry?
I'll just take a minute to sort of take you into the history of human settlements. RERA is a development of the history of human settlements. Human beings in the earlier ages, in prehistorical ages, started by living on trees. That was simple. So you went around hunting, gathering, and at night you climbed a tree and sort of made yourself comfortable between 2 branches and slept ki bhai, yahan there'll be no snake, no animal will get at me. I'm a little more safer than I would be on the ground. So that's where it started. Then you went and started living in caves. Then finally, when human beings said, okay, not just hunting, gathering, I must live in clusters. So then came those little community living, then the villages. Finally, you see towns emerging. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, these are the towns that emerged. And you find they have straight roads, cutting at right angles, where it was not just community living, but they took care of access. So you could move from one place to another very easily because there was a straight road. There was a crossing where everybody could meet, and from there you could go to different areas. So these were concepts. Today, a straight road and a crossing, yeah, it's there, it's a given. But just imagine in that prehistoric area, somebody to think of this concept and lay a city or town like that was amazing. Then came the era of what we say is the town planning era. We said, okay, let's plan towns. So like I said earlier, let's allocate areas. So then we said, all right, this area will go residential, this area will be commercial, here we'll have a school. So you planned the town. And that was the concept of town planning, the development plan. Then we moved a step ahead. We said, okay, town planning is not just enough. You can't have one building which is sort of going so high, is not meeting fire requirements. You're over constructing in a particular area. You are having overpopulation somewhere else. So you came up with what is called the development control regulations or building bylaws in some states, as they say. So these bylaws and development control regulations then started controlling the construction of each building or each plot. What density of population do you intend creating where?
Right.
And where you want the commercial, where you want the residential. So then there came the DCR. Till this point, the government more or less thought, yes, we've achieved. So we've planned the town, we've put control on the building construction, now we don't need to do anything. But the last mile was still unattended. Then you started finding that there are a lot of disputes between the buyer and seller. So, town to planned hai, ghar bhi bahut acha sundar ban gaya hai. But when the buyer is going to sell it, the seller is selling to the buyer, there are a lot of issues there and there was complete chaos over there. Then came the idea of RERA. All right, now let's have regulatory oversight on this sector. So till then you had regulatory oversight planning the town, you had regulatory oversight on sort of what is called the building construction. Now first time you got regulatory oversight over the transactions. And this was important not only for the industry, because if transactions came in doubt, people started doubting the industry would have died or at least slowed down or costs would have gone up. Similarly for the buyer, there was a lot of pain. He never got what he was promised. So both these problems, to sort that out, came the RERA Act, which said let's regulate the buyer-promoter relationship.
Forming a new regulatory authority, what might be the challenges that RERA might have faced during its inception?
The first and the foremost thing is that when a new law comes in, especially a regulatory law, it's very important to understand its essence, not only as the leader of the team, also ensure that the essence is understood by the people you lead, and also ensure that the essence of the act is understood by all those this act is or this legislation is supposed to serve. You can't just say, I have understood the law. You may have, but people who need to be served must also understand, and also your staff must understand, your team must understand this. So the first challenge was to understand the essence of the law. So we started from there, and then you see how to sort of convert the essence of the law is a concept. How do you sort of convert that concept into a real doable SOP? So then you say, okay, this is my concept, this is what I want to achieve, this is the end of it, and then you put it in place, put everything in line. So that's the second challenge. And then, of course, the nuts and bolts challenge, how much staff you need where and how much is the office space. That's a nuts and bolts challenge which any organization faces.
During its formation, was there the acceptance that is there today for RERA during that time?
During that time, there was a little confusion on all sides. To start with, let me be very honest, most of the people said, as it is, I need so many permissions, why one more? Natural. That's a very natural reaction. Most of the developers would say, कि इतने permissions मिल रहे हैं, इतने permission लेने, environment clearance लेना, fire clearance लेना, OC, CC, IOD. Why one more clearance? Why? What is the need for this? First apprehension. Apprehension in the mind of the allottee or the buyer was, what will RERA do? These builders are so powerful. In any case, they can twist our arms. What these fellows can do? That was the other apprehension. Then the staff, your own team, they really don't know what is the direction that you're going to take. So slowly you put things in place. Yes, any new law is always met with resistance, is always met with apprehensions, doubt, suspicion. Slowly, as you put things in place, then people start onboarding because everybody sees, yes, this makes sense. And then it starts moving on. And hopefully, I think we are now at that stage where a larger acceptance is coming in that, yes, it's for the good of all.
Now, if we could take off certain case studies, maybe initially when the quarterly update system came into place for developers, or how the brokers are now required to compulsorily give an exam, get the certificate, and then only practice brokerage. But still, there is always some resistance with everyone. The solution is just be patient with time and you'll see the results, or some actions need to be put out to make things actually work.
It's like this, like I said, you need to spell out the essence and the objective of this legislation very, very clearly and articulately. The legislation is not here to dictate. The minute you say that I have a legislation which is now going to dictate, Mr. X, you do this, Mr. Y, you do that, there is trouble. This legislation is fundamentally to ensure free, fair and true disclosures. Disclose. Please leave it to the wisdom of the buyer to then decide whether he wants to buy or not. Before this act came in, there was asymmetry of information. The buyer really didn't know what he was buying into. He just went by a brochure or an advertisement. This developer or builder बहुत अच्छा है, मेरे जान पहचान का है, दोस्त का दोस्त है, ले लो. He never really had hard information. So the first thing that you said, QPRs, the quarterly progress reports. A lot of developers were, it's ये क्या है हर 3 महीने डालना है? It's for your own good. You're informing the buyer about the progress of your project. Should the buyer, or why believe the buyer? Believe the buyer. Why should you not know how much money has been spent? As the CEO of the company or the owner of the company, should you not know how much construction has taken place in the last 3 months? Should you not know from the architect that what kind of features have been achieved? All that I'm asking you to put it in public domain. And if you are not taking reports, then I'm really worried. As a CEO of the company, if you're not taking these fundamental reports, it makes me worried. And if you're taking it, please put it in public domain. That's about it. So then people started saying, yes, makes sense. Let's put it there. So slowly this thing went, and then the buyers also realized, jab ye information aa rahi hai, why not? Similarly, things like, at the time of registration, पहले बड़ा opposition था. हमने कहा भाई अपनी title दीजिए. Give us a certificate saying your title is clear. Or if you have an encumbrance, tell us. We are not saying you should have a clear. Tell us if there's an encumbrance. Tell us if your plans have been approved by the corporation or the planning authority. If you tell me yes, please put it in public domain. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything else. Put this in public domain. If you have litigation on your land on which you are building, put it in public domain. Let the buyer decide. And I'm sure you have it. And if you don't have it, please don't build.
Right.
The barest minimum that I expect you to have is information. And whatever information I have, you put it there. Then people realize, yeah, this also makes sense. So slowly, it was a step-by-step journey into making people realize
that it's for their own good rather than the buyers. It is good for the buyers as well.
Buyers and the developers, and it makes sense. We are not saying something out of the blue. It makes sense to have this information, put it in public domain.
The beautiful part is that it is good for everyone. It's not just focusing on good for one person, one stakeholder. It's good for everyone.
Nothing succeeds unless it's a two-way street. One-way streets never succeed.
Win-win, only win-win.
It doesn't happen.
Coming to the talk that is very hot topic right now for MahaRERA is the implementation of the new portal, which is MahaCriti. I want to know, why is there a requirement of a new portal and replace the old one?
This is a part of our ongoing journey. Our journey has been based on one foundation, and that's disclosure. True disclosures. That's where we are. Very clear. If you want to ask me to put the journey in one word, is disclosures. That's what we've been hammering. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Leave it to the buyer to then decide whether he wants to buy this or not. If he finds it's a risky purchase, he's not going to buy.
Right.
If he finds it's a safe purchase, he'll buy and he'll also pay you a premium. So as a part of that, see, we were already IT enabled. It's not that we were not IT enabled. We have hearings which are online, registrations which are, all IT enabled, everything. But these were operating in silos. So that's the first thing we did, was nothing was talking to the other. So in the sense, when you registered, whatever you have registered with, I could not see when I was listening to a complaint. So it was all different bins in which information was listening. Information was not connected.
Okay.
So the first thing that Kriti does, it's like an ERP, wherein all information that we've gathered is now speaking to each other. So you have what is called a single source of truth. So once you register and you put in the details, anytime you talk of your project on any issue, we'll pick up the truth from there.
Got it.
So that's the first thing that we did.
It has merged various
No,
verticals.
it's like an ERP. So anything you touch here, it will get reflected there. You touch there, it will get reflected here. So that was something very, very important. Second, many things, though it was on an IT system, was happening manually. So manually, we had to see how many QPRs you have filed and not. There is a system you have to sit and count, okay, 1 QPR, 2 QPR, 3 QPRs, 4th year is not filed. Now the system is also embedded with artificial intelligence. It will automatically throw up. So every quarter ending, it will say, look, out of the 40,000 developers that you have registered with you, now you don't have to look through those 40,000. Out of the 40,000, only 20,000 have filed in the last quarter. And these are 20,000 who have not filed. And then you can drill down and say कि these 20,000 में extension भी चाहिए, इसके ये भी problem आ गई है, वो भी problem. Or this man has been withdrawing more money than he is constructing. In his QPR, we find he's withdrawn 60% of the money. Construction is only 40%, cause for worry. So this artificial embedment of artificial intelligence is going to make identification of the problem much more easier.
Right.
It will be a machine-led identification of the problem. Brings in transparency, brings in sort of fairness, and it's much faster to do that. So that's the second thing that this Kriti is going to do. Third, we've also ensured that forms and things become simplified. See, there's no sense, and I keep telling my team also, till yesterday you were filling up a form on a register, हाथ से भर रहे थे. अब आज system पे भरने लगे. Form वही है. This is not IT enablement. You just changed a clerical manual process into an IT process. That's it. That's not. When you go into an IT system, it should be re-engineered completely. So you had 10 columns which you were filling up initially by your hand on a paper with a pencil. And now I fill up the 10 columns through a keyboard. This is not IT enablement. That whole structure, the whole picture must change. It should be re-engineered. Do I really need this information is the first question. Do I need it? Why am I asking? Why should I ask an information which I don't need? All right, you want to ask. After you asked, what are you going to do with that information? Is that information actionable? Or is just collecting statistics? Fair enough, collect statistics, but then know that this moves into that bin of collecting statistics. This is an actionable information. So, slowly we did this, and now, because we are also sitting on a whole lot of data, we can really sort of, manage and look at this data and come up with a lot of trends which are not visible earlier. Data is priceless. And if you can sort of manage the data and if you can sort of move it the way correctly, it's priceless. So now we find that we could have huge studies coming out, thought processes coming out from the very data that we sit on.
We can extract the analytics right now.
A lot of analytics can be done. Makes a lot of sense to do that now.
How much time did it take to build this whole Kriti?
It took about 6-7 months.
That's fast.
I would say fast and I would say slow also. But yes, we were also learning along the way. We said we'd do this and do that and then not do this and change that. And then because the whole team was involved in this, so everybody had an idea.
Right.
So to incorporate them, amend them, it takes time. But I don't mind going slow provided I'm carrying everybody with me. That's important.
How is your experience with transitioning the whole industry from one online portal to shifting to a completely new platform?
That transition is yet to come. But let me be honest, and I keep telling my team, while we are confident that we have a portal which is modern, which is going to be very convenient, there will be problems initially. There will be bugs, there will be issues regarding understanding, there will be technical issues. So let's not run away from that. It's going to be there. But we'll have to sort of live with it and find a way through that. So that is yet to come. We have yet to face that, but I'm sure we'll face it. I don't see any problem there.
Yesterday was the first training session.
First training session is going on even today. Most of the training sessions are now on. And we hope to sort of open it up on the 1st. And let's see how it goes from
I
there.
already heard from few people that this new thing is making so many things easier that you don't have to register every time a new company and you just had to add the project and it does.
True.
Has made things
easier. Fundamentally, it has created a single source of truth.
Right.
So from there, then you can simply mine information. Any information you need, just get mined from there.
So congratulations on this.
Thank you so much. Not only congratulations, also let's keep our fingers crossed that performs well, and problems will be there. I am not one who would say, no, I've got something, no problem. There will be problems. But let's hope we can face it and surmount them. That's the important
Definitely.
issue.
So now I want to move to an issue which is there where the registration of a project is only allowed after plinth CC, and there has been recommendations from developers that it should be done at IOD stage. What is your rationale behind this?
See, the law is very clear. You can't do what is called speculative selling.
Okay.
So if you have an approval, now for example in Mumbai, you have an FSI to build say 50 stories, but initially you will take a CC only for 10. Simply because premiums are high, you really don't know how much would sell, what sells, so you take for 10. Now I cannot allow you to sell a flat on the 50th floor for which you don't have CC. The whole idea of RERA was to bring into public domain for sale only those flats which are clear. So you have a CC, you have everything there, it's there, so it's clear. IOD by its very name is intent of disapproval. See, it is the corporation telling you, I intend to disapprove your project. So he is telling you on your face, I intend to disapprove it. I am not going to approve this. Now, how do I give you a number on that? But yes, what developers are telling me is that at least scrutinize it. So we are now looking at a methodology where we can pre-scrutinize it and keep it. But definitely I am not going to give you a number. A registration cannot be given, but we can pre-scrutinize it and say, yes, it is all correct. But once you get your CC based on this IOD, I will give you a number. So at least the process gets speeded up. So it's basically an initiative to speed up the process, which we have no objection to.
So the practice or the work that is to be done, homework will be done before, but the number will come out on the date of
only
CC.
When you comply with the CC. Say, I cannot go beyond the law. The law is very clear.
The projects which are of less than 500 square meters or having less than 8 apartments or 8 tenants, those are not required to register in RERA. A developer might be happy that he doesn't have to do and regulate with the authorities' requirements. But let's say tomorrow there is a buyer or a customer who purchases in that development of that property. Where will he go? And why don't we change this and make it?
See, this is in the law. It's not something that we've written it. The legislation itself has said this.
Okay.
And I'm sure there was a legislative thought as to how much should you regulate. No legislation can decide to regulate everything. The minute you say, I will regulate everything, I will scrutinize everything, I'm going to monitor everything, you're either lying or you're bound to fail. You have to be selective. In administration or legislation or in the law, you have to be selective as to what are you going to look at. And you fundamentally look at areas and issues where the major problems are coming from. Minor problems will be coming from many places. So that's the first thing. So the law decided to regulate this and we have to follow that. I cannot rewrite the law. That's one. Secondly, it's not remedy-less. There are other remedies available. Of course, I won't discuss that here. But it's not that he is remedy-less. He may not have a remedy in RERA, but he has a remedy in other forums.
Before RERA was implemented, there were various stalled projects stalled before the implementation of RERA. And now various customers and clients who have their money stuck in that project have came to RERA. But since the RERA doesn't have registration of those projects because they were stalled before RERA, the RERA's response has been, you don't have authority over those projects at this stage.
No, Krish, there's a slight correction to what you're saying.
Okay.
While you're saying what you're saying is correct, that the projects have lapsed, but there's no question of we not giving him a remedy just because he does not have a number. That's not the issue. He may have, there are two cases that come up here. One, he may have had a number but that's lapsed because he never bothered to file a QPR, he never bothered to get an extension. The developer has simply disappeared or just simply given up. So it may have lapsed, it may have gone into disuse, but doesn't mean that it's gone. It's also a possibility that before RERA he didn't take a number, but subsequent to RERA he should have taken a number. But just because he doesn't have a number doesn't mean that the allottees are remedy-less. They have to be given a remedy, and giving a number is a curable defect. It's not that I cannot cure this defect. There's nothing that really hinges on giving or not giving. What is important in lapse projects is that developer may not be ready to do for various reasons, either financial or a dispute which is irresolvable between him and the buyer. Now, how do you handle these disputes or these issues? So, if he's run out of money, how do you sort of see that he gets his money? Are the buyers ready to pay him? So, issues are very different, and that is something that we are now sort of struggling with. How do we find a way to get this going? And they're not easy issues.
Any precautions we have to make sure that projects don't get stalled?
See, now what we are doing is, earlier, of course, or 2-3 things one we have done. First and foremost, we find projects get stalled when money does not come into an account meant for constructing that project. So developer takes one check in XYZ's name, the other check in somebody else's name, and puts the money in different accounts and doesn't use it for building. Any money from the buyer must go in building the account. So the law says 70% of the money should come into a RERA designated account. That we have become very strict.
Okay.
Please open accounts. We've defined how you open the accounts. We've defined how you put the 70% there. The sale deed will say which account the money is going to go into. So we become very, very strict, and we are scrutinizing this, that the first place the money collected comes into an account over which we have a regulatory oversight. That's the first thing. So it should come in my radar space. It cannot be here, there, which is outside my space. That's one. Second issue to avoid as you get a project lapsing is that this money, once it has come into my airspace, when it moves out, it should move only to the building for which he has paid. It cannot be used for something else. Earlier, what would happen was they will collect money, hum aapko de rahe hain, and then go and buy another piece of land. And then there's no money left to do this project. So we are now ensuring that this money goes there through the QPRs. And if we find that he spent more money, but the construction is less, it's a red flag. So if you've drawn 60% of your money and we find on the ground it's only 20% construction, that's a red flag. I'm going to show you a red flag and ask you to stop, revoke your registration or whatever. We need an explanation. We are not letting you go ahead unless we are satisfied. So these and little efforts are now ensuring that money comes into an account which is supervised, and from the supervised account goes for the purpose for which it was taken. So that should prevent lapsing of projects.
Now, various complaints that have been registered in Jan 23 are now coming up to the brim of the bottle and getting resolution right now.
Yeah.
Any things or any plans we have to expedite this process?
See, there is pendency, there's just no doubt about it. We are 3 of us and we hear cases separately. There is a pendency. But definitely, we can't remove pendency by compromising on quality. That's something I am very sure about. There is no sense in saying, well, I have moved volumes, but I have forgotten quality. No, it doesn't happen. So we need to ensure quality. What we are trying to do is increase regulatory oversight so that complaints become less. So we are identifying areas where the complaints come from. For example, one area where we used to get a lot of complaint was parking.
Okay.
Oh, I have been given a parking where my car doesn't even enter. It's so small. So we said, no, please define. So a complaint would come and then you looked at it, you heard it, you passed a compensation order. Now we said, no, you define. This is my parking size. So if your car fits into that parking size, buy it. Otherwise, don't buy it. Similarly, things like amenities. He promised me amenity, but now he's saying when the 5th phase or the 10th tower is done, I will give you. Today, I will not give you. Now we said, please give him the time. When are you going to give him the amenities? So these small things where disputes were coming, we are now putting all that in black and white and ensuring that it comes under regulatory oversight so that complaints don't come. So you need to burn the candle from both ends.
Right.
The one end is reduce complaints in itself so that pendency goes down. Second end is now try to speed up whatever you have without compromising quality. So that's the strategy that we are following now.
It is a beautiful way to solve the problem from both the ends.
Both the ends, yeah.
Now coming to, there has been a lot of buzz around the grading system that RERA would want to implement, but what is the clarity on this whole system?
I'll simply say, look, the grading system came. Basically, we said there are 4 or 5 parameters which is key to a project. Number of litigations that the project is facing. Are you filing your QPRs? The simple things which sort of reflect on the manner in which you are executing the project. And the manner in which people, if you have too many litigations, there is a suspicion around your project. Why so many litigations? Or if you're not filing QPRs, why are you not filing? Is it sheer laziness? Or you have something to hide? What is it? So grading, we said there are 4 or 5 things which are key for understanding the project, which a buyer must know. Let us put this together and come up with a consolidated rank saying that this is where it stands on these 5 features. Not that these are the only 5 features, but these are the 5 important features. Initially, developers resented. But then we said, look, there is no personal bias in this because we are going by the information you are giving me. I am not generating any information. Whatever information, suppose you have not filed a QPR, is there for you and everybody else to see. So we've made it completely transparent and bias free. So that has led to acceptance. So now as the grading was, this is the first stage of grading where we are just taking 4 or 5 things. But slowly we'll sort of, make it more and more. We deepen it and widen it a little more as we go along.
Is there a particular timeline for implementation of this?
See, it's like this. Any regulatory work or any work on, disclosures, I really won't put a timeline because it just moves on. It's you learn along, then you find complaints coming from a particular area, then you see how to incorporate that. So the minute I say, but this is all and that's it, that means the story is dead. You can't be sitting on a dead story. If the story has to be alive, it has to grow.
Right.
So complaints will grow, problems will come up, and you then sort of tackle them and move ahead.
You can just keep getting better every
You
time.
just keep bettering. So there's no way that you can say, okay, now I have reached the best and I'm not going further. No, there's nothing called the best.
Now, one thing I noticed, which I got to know, is that when a developer is making a project, he doesn't have a fixed cap timeline that he should finish the project in 3 years, be it of 50,000 square feet or 1 lakh square feet. And he can decide that he wants to complete his project and apply for RERA for 5 years, 3 years or 7 years. Why is developer given the freedom to decide the timeline?
It's like this. For one, we believe that disclosure is important and not dictating terms. Now, if the developer upfront, and this is something which he has to declare upfront when you're buying, he declares upfront that I'm going to complete this in 10 years, not before that. It's for you not to sign the agreement. Don't sign it, don't buy it. There can also be a category of persons who say, oh, well, that's good. It's finishing in 20 years. I need to give it to my grandson or my granddaughter. So I'll buy this only. It's for the buyer to decide. It's for me to ensure that he puts the correct information out in public domain. So if he is going to take 5 years and he says 3 years and I force him that, no, you say 3 years, I have not served any purpose. The buyer is still cheated. So he may come to me as a curative. The whole idea of this law has been preventive, not curative. So if I post him to say 3 years when he was actually going to take 5 years, in 3 years he doesn't come, then he'll come to me and say, now give me a cure, I am sick. Instead, prevention is, if he says 5 years, well, he is saying 5 years. You want to buy, others don't buy. That's why it is.
Now, coming to again the broker registration part, where in a ET article, out of the 47,000 brokers, 13,700 didn't renew their license and 20,000 haven't given the exam or haven't uploaded their certificates on the portal. So their license has been suspended, leaving about 14,000 brokers. Do you think this whole process is going to make any changes in the sales transactions or is having an impact?
Hey, like I said earlier, I don't believe in volumes. I believe in quality. So if there is a broker and he's stamped with a RERA number, he is carrying a RERA number, sitting in a fiduciary position or in a position of trust, what is he offering to the people? Or what am I giving him a number from? Just because you applied to me and I gave you a number. तो फिर तो मैं को कल चश्मे का भी नंबर दूंगा, गाड़ी का भी नंबर दूंगा. It's not my business. You applied to me for a number for being a broker. What have I seen? And when I say, well, Mr. Krish is a broker, he is RERA certified, RERA number, what have we seen? So we said, let's have an exam. We're not making you do PhD or something which is not relevant. We're not asking you questions on economics, physics and chemistry. We are asking you simple things which are involved in the trade of the housing product. But do you know what is a RERA carpet area? Do you know what is a force majeure clause? Do you know what are the 5 things that must go into a sale agreement? This is all what we are saying. At least know that so that you can tell your client, look, this agreement does not meet the requirements. In this agreement, the RERA carpet area is not defined correctly. You are being gypped or cheated in this. At least he must be aware. Just because you are a broker does not mean you just make 2 people sit across and chalo bhai, now do what you want to do. You are supposed to advise and give what is called correct, legally tenable advice. So we said give an exam. Initially there was a resentment, but now people realize that there is a lot of value to that exam. There will still be a category which doesn't want to take the exam. I can't force you to take the exam, but definitely if I am going to give you a certification, I better be sure what I am certifying. So if a college gave you a degree, he's going to take an exam. It's not just because you entered the college, you'll get a degree at the end of the day. It doesn't happen.
Can developers still pay the brokerage to the brokers who are not having that license from RERA?
Well, we've said we are not going to give you a registration. Now, if you're dealing with an unregistered broker, at your risk.
Okay, it's a developer's.
At your risk. You want to drive a car without a registration number, your risk.
Definitely.
Yes, but we've said, look, you should not be a broker unless you have a registration number.
Now, recently a quality assurance certificate document came where they have asked developers to annually submit the report to the RERA. How does this benefit all the stakeholders?
So quality has been one issue which has been disturbing us, and we've also had a lot of complaints on quality. Flats leaking in the first monsoon itself, doors coming off, tiles just moving. So we said initially, let's start with you declaring as a developer as to what quality checks you are exercising. And we've defined the various quality checks that are available in the market. Just put it in public domain that these are the quality checks that I do. So for example, I'm checking concrete on the site. I'm getting the steel tested from so-and-so lab. My water that is going in for construction is tested here. The various fittings that I am putting in are certified as so-and-so. So fundamentally, we've said make your disclosures. Then let the buyer decide whether he's buying that or not. So the first step has been that quality is an issue. Please realize that. If quality is an issue, a quality inspection methodology has to be put in place. And whatever you have put in place, please put it in public domain. Let people compare. Mr. X does this. Mr. Y does this. X is better. Therefore, I buy X. I'm not buying Y.
It is very beautiful that the whole authority is actually regulating the whole industry and making things easier for everyone. I want to move a little bit to your personal life and want to ask you certain things where maybe what are your favorite book recommendations that you would give to people?
That is something I'll leave it with my ME only, because I read a lot and I read different books, and I really do not sort of subscribe to the idea that this one book is the end of everything. Knowledge is something which just, as Rabindranath Tagore said, just open your windows and doors and let it come. So I can't really say, oh, well, this book on physics is worth reading, and that on philosophy is great, or this on law is great. Every subject and every genre has its own, good and bad. Read whatever you can lay your hands on. Read what you like to read. But at the end of it, also assimilate something. Can I go back with a story for myself from this?
Right.
So I leave it at that. I never, honestly, I've never recommended a book. I read a lot. I have a huge...
Which genre you like particularly?
I read everything. Of course, I don't read fiction. Unfortunately, I don't know why I don't read fiction. At times, people tell me because somewhere, some part of you is dead. Because fiction is important for life. Life is not all about reality. Life is not all about facts. Life is not all about logic.
It is about imagination as well.
It's much beyond logic, facts and reality. And that's where the softer part of life is. So, I've still not done reading. I've never read a thriller or a fiction. But I suppose I should start now. And I'll do it.
What would be your greatest life lessons in your journey?
One is know your... first is know your capacity. A lot of people overrate themselves or underrate themselves. It's very rare to find people rightly rating themselves. So first, please look back, look inside and rate yourself. Where am I? What's my capacity? Don't underrate yourself. If you're good, you're good. And if you're bad, you're bad. So rate yourself, know your weaknesses, know your strength. Once you know your weaknesses, know your strength, then you know which goal to achieve. And that goal is not unachievable. No, I don't know how to fly an aircraft. And I said, look, I'll be the best pilot in the world. Sorry, you can't. So let's know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, rate yourself, and then decide what your targets are. I'm sure you'll achieve it. So that's one big lesson I've learned in life. It's not, nothing is inachievable. Like people say, yeah, I can achieve everything. Yes, you can, provided you know your own strengths and weaknesses. So everything is achievable, provided you know what your capacity is.
Few things you would like to say for people to pursue more into government positions and working?
Well, government needs a completely different skill set to work in. One is, of course, you have to be very, very sensitive to what people want. Then you must also understand that government works within a framework. You don't have the freedom of giving away or saying anything. It's a framework that you... Thirdly, you must realize that you are dealing with public money. You have to be prudent. It's not my money. Okay, I like this ice cream, I'm going to have it. No. When you're spending government money, you need to be more prudent about spending it. So government working is very different from your own private life or the way a private industry would operate. But one thing remains common, both in the private industry and in the government, the decisions must be made. The solution is not to say, well, I'm not going to take a decision, I'm going to remain paralyzed. So that's something which is common. So all I can say is that please ensure that you take your decisions, but please also ensure that the field that you're playing in is different from the field that the private sector plays in.
What is your view on corruption?
Next question.
What do you like to do in your free time?
Well, I swim. I like swim in the evening, but I'm not a great swimmer or sort of, racing away or something. I used to play a lot of ground games. Now I think somewhere I must realize that age is coming on, and I love tennis, squash, but now more or less stop. I love a walk. I love music a lot. I listen to quite a bit of music, and I read a lot. And of course, gossip is something which every man likes, and I love it too.
Got it. Since your tenure as the chairman of MahaRERA is coming close, you have any thoughts or plans post this?
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people ask me. And people would say, क्या करोगे तुम? I say, मैं कुछ नहीं करूँगा. मेरे से ज़्यादा लोगों को ज़्यादा तकलीफ, अरे कुछ नहीं करेगा कैसे हो सकता है? So then I have reframed the answer to saying, I am going to practice the art of doing nothing. So that looks more romantic, an idea. कुछ नहीं करेगा मतलब वेला है. But if you're going to practice the art of doing nothing, so then people say, yes, he's got some plan to do. Honestly, I really have no plans. I have had a nice 40 years, and I must also say that, मैं ये नहीं कहूँगा कि I was a bad student. I was a very good student in my college and school days. And to be a good student, you have to put in work. The academic work is also not easy. It's backbreak. And I have put in that academic hard work to be where I am. It's like I come from an ordinary middle class family. To clear the exam I'm not going to. A lot of guys go and fake and tell you, oh, मैं तो last bench में बैठता था, मैं तो third आता था, fourth आता था, फिर भी. No, I was a topper. I was a scholarship holder throughout, and I'm proud of it. And I worked for it. So I've had a long, hard-working life. And now it's time to sort of throw back and enjoy.
One last question, which is your advice to the developers out there in Bombay.
I don't think I'm there to advise on any issue. The only thing that I advise everybody on is that the more transparency you bring in, the more disclosures you do, the more upfront you are, you will command a better and better premium. You will have a better name in the market. The minute you start hiding things in sort of, putting it around with sweet language, putting sugar around a bitter pill, people are going to see through. Let's not, think that the buyer is a fool. He may be fooled once. So as they say, you can fool people once, but you cannot fool them always.
Fair enough.
That's how I leave it at that.
I would like to thank you so much for being a part of this and making this happen. You are very inspiring, and you have had a very great career, and looking at it really got me interested that sometimes from today's youth and from today's perspective, it doesn't feel that much enjoying and fulfilling to work with government. But when getting exposed to people who are there in these positions, it does feel that these are also quite exciting and good roles that someone can look up to and plan something for their career as well. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this.
Thank you, Krish. It's always nice to meet youngsters, and even better to meet youngsters who are doing something off the track, There are a lot of guys doing the general, taking the general, road down the thing. It's nice to see a person like you come here, prepared with the questions, and not easy to take on an old man like me, but you've done that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.